The interstate system was designed to transport cars at high speeds, whether that be across the country or for under a mile. It does its job by putting people where they need to be. Today we're going to talk about those short interstates, taking a look at how small the interstate system gets and why these small highways still serve a purpose. Before this video starts, please consider subscribing to the channel. To put it simply, I make content like this every week, so if that's something you'd enjoy, just hit the subscribe button. It's super easy. Thank you. So today there are a few things I want to look at, because the term shortest interstate may belong to one singular, incredibly short route, but the idea of a short interstate is very general and common. So in almost every instance, you'll see short interstates in cities, specifically urban centers. They can be used to connect more major interstates into downtowns, or just to and from points of interest. Almost all of the shortest interstates in the country are basically just glorified exit ramps, but there is one main thing that causes that to be part of the interstate system rather than having no real designation, and that would be federal funding. This happens a lot with development of interstates because nobody really wants to pay for their highways, and designating it as an interstate spur route will help you get around that. So let's start off by going over the shortest two-digit interstates, starting with I-11 in Nevada. So I-11 is 22.6 miles long, which is the third shortest two-digit interstate. It goes from the Nevada border at the Hoover Dam up around Boulder City into Henderson before ending there and turning into I-515. So this doesn't make much sense, does it? Well, basically I-11 isn't meant to be this short. It's currently being constructed. So currently the only portion to be done is this 22-mile stretch, but the plan for the distant future is for the highway to extend up to Reno, Nevada, and all the way down to Nogales, Arizona. This would most of all add a much-needed direct connection from Phoenix to Las Vegas, but also a connection from Las Vegas to Reno, which would be big for travel in the region. Next up, we have the second shortest two-digit interstate, I-97 in Maryland. So this highway stretches from Baltimore's Beltway down to the capital of the state in Annapolis. And it's extremely interesting. Basically, it's the shortest two-digit interstate that isn't actually meant to be expanded further. This is what the highway is. It's actually just supposed to be 17.62 miles and serve as a connector between Baltimore and Annapolis. With that, I think it's safe to say it would be better as a three-digit spur route, because that feels like exactly what it is. It spurs from a more major route to a point of interest. Now, this probably won't happen because of the nature of government, and it's just not an easy enough thing to change for it to be worth it. But that doesn't mean they won't one day. Finally, we have the current shortest two-digit interstate, I-87. At this moment, this highway heads from the inner Raleigh Beltway for 12.9 miles to a random interchange with Business 64. Now, this one's a pretty easy story. It really just isn't done yet. So the route is meant to stretch from Wake Forest, North Carolina, across the northeast portion of the state, ending in Norfolk, Virginia, and the Hampton Roads area. So this shouldn't be number one on the list for long, as the route is, I think, currently being constructed. I don't know how they're doing on it, but it should be done at some point. Anyways, now we can move on to the main attraction, interstate spur routes. So by default, the shortest of short interstates are going to be spur routes. Because if you're building a 1-mile interstate or something like that, you aren't going to give it 2 digits. It's going to be an offshooting 3-digit spur route. So interestingly, the first 5 out of the top 10 are all connecting into a city center. We start with I-375 in Florida, a friend of the channel, which connects from I-275 into downtown St. Petersburg in the Tampa Bay metropolitan area, which is just north of the slightly longer I-175, which does the exact same thing. These glorified exit ramps are one of my favorites in the system because of how dumb they are. Number 9 is I-395, still in Florida, connecting I-95 to the north part of downtown Miami. Number 8 is another friend of the channel, I-587 in Kingston, New York, connecting I-87 into the downtown of a city that does not need an interstate for that. Next is I-194 in Bismarck, North Dakota, which really deserves its own video for being absolutely terrible, so be on the lookout for that coming into the end of the year here. Number 6 is another friend of the channel, I-115 in Butte, Montana, which again connects I-15 into the downtown of a city that does not really need it. I talked about this in the most useless interstate video, as well as I-587 in Kingston, New York. At number 5, we have yet another friend of the channel, I-180 in Cheyenne, Wyoming, which is known for being not up to interstate standards at any point in the route, and literally just being a completely normal road that is a part of the interstate system for absolutely no good reason. Number 4 is I-376 in Michigan, which is a short part of the loop around downtown Detroit. This is another one I would consider useless, and you'll probably see it in a future video, because for whatever reason, it doesn't even cover this whole loop around the downtown Detroit area, which is stupid on its own. So it's basically a not useful part of a not useful loop, making it ×2 on the useless meter. Finally, we make our way to the top 3 with I-110 in Texas. Now, somehow, some way, the shorter we get, maybe the more useful we get, because maybe the only useful interstate I've shown on this list is I-110 in El Paso, Texas. I-110 is one of the 3 interstates in the country under a mile. It basically comes off from I-10 in El Paso, Texas, east of the downtown, and immediately crosses the border into Mexico. Now, this actually makes some sense that you would get it interstate funded at the border crossing, and it feels actually minorly needed. So props to Texas for this one, being the lone W of the video. It only took us this long, but congrats to you guys. Great stuff. Next, we have I-315 in Great Falls, Montana. Now, this one only kind of counts because it's not technically signed, but is designated. And plus, the number 1 isn't signed either, so if we're going by that logic, I-110 in El Paso would be number 1 on the list. So I-315 is a 0.83 mile route in Great Falls, Montana. It goes from I-15, not all the way into the downtown, but instead just until it encounters an intersection with 6th Street, ending there. It doesn't really do much, and the Great Falls area is already not really struggling infrastructurally to the point that it needs a spur anyways, so this one is really just not great. And finally, to end off our list, we have I-878 in New York. Now, first of all, I wanted to congratulate Illinois for staying off the list, a big first for them. Illinois as a state is known for having a ton of really awful interstates, so the fact that they stayed off of this list today is really, really good for them. So anyways, Interstate 878 isn't signed, as I said before, and it's hard to even define it because of its nature. The designated portion is 0.7 miles between Interstate 678 and the JFK Expressway. It's located in Queens, just north of the airport, basically. Now, if you want to ask why it's a thing, I have no answer for you. It's not long or useful, it has no exits, and it's not even two-way traffic, literally only being westbound. Now, it gets a bit of a pass because it's not signed, but I still get to make fun of it for not even being nearly an interstate. One thing I will say is the shorter the interstate, the more likely it is to be really dumb. Out of the 10 shortest in the country, I'd say the only one that isn't mostly useless would be I-110 in El Paso, the lone winner of this video. So there you have it. The moral of the story is these extremely short interstates are almost always there for a funny reason. So I encourage you to go look and find for yourself what these may be. Looking at the history of these highways is incredibly enjoyable and interesting. Thanks for watching. Thank you to the members this week: Somnam Woods, Big Pasty, Karen Hudson 81, Stormy Knight, Nikita Martinoff, KMS 162, Haystack, Benjamin Whiting, Ryan Devins, Hazev the Wolf, Jake Holloway, JL, Jeremy Crone, Carport, Dominic Psyche, Rosebud 4, and Bryson. Thank you all so much. I genuinely just really appreciate it that you're helping out the channel like this. If you want to become a member, the link is down in the description below. All of this money goes straight into my college savings, so you know it's not going to a bad cause. You're really just supporting me as a person because you enjoy the channel. Thank you so much.